a little bit about the live sessions. If you don't know what this is, or if you missed the first one that Zach did, essentially we're going to be trying to do live sessions every single week. I believe, is teaching about 3D. And then everything I'll be teaching will be inside of After Effects, using all the tools that we find within After Effects without necessarily using any third-party plugins. For the live sessions, the people who get access to them every single week will be those who are subscribed to anybody's course or to the course website itself, and you will get access to every single live course. Like whoever's videos are going live, then you get access to that. If I think they told me that if you purchased the full course of somebody specifically, then you will get access to anybody's live course once a month. So I think that's pretty much how it goes. But you can fact check me and see if that changed at all. But if not, you can go to the website to see what that's all about. But okay, sweet. So we have about an hour to go through this edit. I'm going to try to be as clear as I can as I go through, and I'm going to try to walk through and explain everything that I'm doing so you guys can follow along. But the first thing we can do is take a look at what we're going to be doing. So if you, let's see, I'm hoping that you can see After Effects open. So I'm just going to hit play so you can kind of get an idea of what we're going to be doing. So, sorry, before we do that, every live session that I do, we are going to be going over specifically VFX magic, simple magic tricks that are combined with VFX. And what better way to do that in showing magic than with actual cards? It's an iconic thing to do with any kind of magic trick is with cards. So in this video specifically, what we're going to be doing, I show the card, it's an ace of diamonds, and I go through. For the edit, what we're going to do is we're going to make the card kind of float in the air right here, and then we're going to make it disappear, okay? It's going to disappear, that's going to catch the viewer's attention, and then what we're going to do is I'm going to make it look like I'm grabbing the card out of thin air. Later on, it's going to seem like my hand is going behind the sign in the back. And I'm going to grab it, take it out, and then flip it over. Now, when I flip it over, you'll notice that it's not the ace of diamonds, it's the two of diamonds. So then in the video, I also noticed that, and I'm going to then switch it to the ace of diamonds. Okay, so there are 3 main effects that we're going to be covering in just this video. The first one, again, is making the card go up and disappear in the air. The second one is making my hand go behind the sign and grabbing it. And then third, making the two of diamonds become the ace of diamonds. So let's start with the very first step, which is making the card disappear in the air. So inside of After Effects, there are different things called compositions or different folders you can make. Now to do that, what we're going to do, I'm going to click the layer. I'm going to go to the point where I want to start, and I'm going to click Command-Shift-D. That's going to cut it. I'm going to go to the point where I want it to end and do the same thing, Command-Shift-D. I'm going to right-click this section, and I'm going to pre-compose this, okay? Hey, great question. Yes, this is being recorded. I believe so. Let me double check on that. Yes, it is being recorded, and we will be giving you guys a link access to that later on. So we're going to pre-compose this, and something that if you aren't used to this, that you should start now. Everything you do, you want to either name or keep it extremely organized. So we're going to pre-comp this, and we're going to name this card part 1. Okay. So we're going to go into here, and we're going to start the effect number 1, which was making the card disappear up in the air. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is actually grab a frame of the card so that we can animate it in the air. So I'm going to duplicate this layer, and I'm going to find a spot where I'm showing the card, which is, I think right here is a good spot. I'm going to right click, and I'm going to time freeze frame this so that we can cut this out. Now, freeze framing is essentially freezing the frame so that it's the same frame during the entire part of the composition. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to mask out the card. So to do that, you can either go up here and click this pen tool, or you can on your keyboard click the letter G, and that'll give you the pen tool. So I'm just going to very quickly mask out the card. Doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be spinning in the air, and you're not going to notice any kind of like imperfections or anything. So let's see. Oh, there we go. So I've completely masked out the card. Now, as you notice, there's still a finger right here. So we want to get rid of that. So the way I would do it, I would go ahead and pre-compose this just like we did the previous layer. I need this card. And I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm going to rotate it around just like this so that the blank part is covering the finger on the bottom. So I'm going to reduce the opacity so that we see what's underneath. Now if I click G again, I'm going to mask out this finger so that the white part is covering it on the card. Let's bring this back up, and there we go. Now, it's not perfect. If you want to get rid of this line, we're going to feather the mask a little bit. So go down here. I'm going to click F to feather. I'm going to feather this up, and that should smoothen out the line. Now, again, this doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be rotating in the air, and you're not going to notice the imperfections in the card. So again, I'm going to grab both of these layers, and I'm going to pre-compose and maybe call it card final. Okay. So, to make sure this is spinning in the air, we want to first animate the position of it. But we want to make sure that the axis, this little anchor point, is in the middle of the card. Because if we start rotating it, it's going to start rotating around the anchor point. So to do that, we're going to click Y. And then that way we can grab this little anchor point and bring it up to the middle of the card. That way, when we do end up rotating it, it's going to be rotating around the anchor point. So I'm going to go back to the point where I first throw the card, which is right here. Okay. So with that, I'm going to make the card appear first, right in this frame. I'm going to position it, and I'm going to click P to open up the position down here. Now, to be able to animate it to go up, what we have to do is click this little stopwatch down here. And what this does, just for an example, if I scroll forward, if I move this way, that means that the card is now going to move according to where you positioned it. Now, I can move this either further away or closer. If I move this closer, that means the card's going to move faster to whatever position we wanted it to go. So I'm going to delete this right here so that we can make it go up here right where we want. Okay. So let's just see. Okay, we want to maybe make it go faster. Now I'm going to add some gravity to it. So I'm going to make it go up first, and then I'm going to make it fall down just a little bit. Now another thing, I want to make sure that it's staying aligned with my eyesight. So I'm going to lift it up just a little bit more. Okay. So let's just, it's going to look horrible. Let's just see what that looks like. Okay, cool. Now, to smoothen out the motion a little bit, I'm going to grab these two, and I'm going to hit Easy Ease. What that does is going to make the animation a bit smoother. Okay? So, I'm going to make this drop back down a bit more. Let's just see what that looks like. Okay, cool. Now, obviously, that looks pretty wonky. So what we're going to do now is we're going to turn this card into 3D. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, if you go down here, there's this little box icon, and we want to click that to activate it. What that does is essentially make this card so that we can rotate it in 3D space. So I can go up and down, or right and left, sideways, whatever. The reason why we want to do that is because now we can match the position of the card that's underneath, right? So we see that when I throw the card, it's sideways. So we want to do that. We want to kind of find the same positioning with the fake card. Okay, so let's just say it's like that. I'm going to turn the opacity back up. Bum, bum, bum. Cool. So now I'm going to animate the rotation so that it's spinning in the air once it leaves my hand. And we want to make sure we're rotating the Z axis. Okay, so let's go down to the Z rotation. I'm going to go forward a few frames, and I'm going to make it rotate this way. And we're just going to, so now you can see that it's rotating in the air. So let's just see what that looks like. Nice. So I throw it up in the air. It falls. I'm going to smoothen out this just a little bit more. Okay, so I throw it, and when it falls, I want it to rotate a bit more to the point where it disappears out of thin air. So let's animate the other positions to where it's thin. I think right there is a good spot. And then I'm going to delete it so that it's gone once it twists. Let's see. Okay, that's not bad. I'm going to change the scale of it because I think it's too big. I'm going to make that smaller a little bit. There you go. I'm even going to add a bit more rotation to it so that it looks like it's like kind of going crazy. Let's see. All right, let's see what that looks like. There we go. Okay, that's kind of cool. So if you guys notice, obviously when I throw the card up, you see the real card flying out of my hand, and that's not what we want. So to get rid of the card in the back, I'm going to turn off the fake card that we made just so that it's not distracting. What we want to do is we want to go to a point where there's nothing in the air pretty much. So there's like an empty background right here. The reason why that's because we're going to create our own clean plate. Clean plates are used to kind of hide things or like block things that are underneath to make it look like that they're not there. So we're going to do the same thing when we do with the card. Right click and go to time, freeze frame. That way, if I were to mask out this section right here, which is where the real card flies towards, and I scroll forward, we see that the card is going to disappear. Now we see up here, it appears again. So we're just going to bring this mask up a little bit more. Now, if you see, my hand is also disappearing because the mask of the clean plate is on top of that. So something that we can do is click M, and we're going to animate the mask so that it moves with my hand so that it's not being blocked or being cut off by the mask. But making sure that we get the card completely under it. So let's just see. Okay, yeah, perfect. Let's just see what that looks like with the mask. We see again, my fingers get cut off again, so we can move this that way. And then just for good measure, we're gonna feather it out so that you don't see the line of the mask. Okay, cool. So now it looks like the card just disappears out of thin air, which is also a pretty cool effect. We could just leave it like that if we wanted to. Now to make sure, so if I go on the end, if I turn this off, you're gonna see that there's a small little jump between the focus and the freeze frame. So the clean plate's on. If I turn it off, you're gonna see how it changes a little bit. So if we want to very seamlessly get rid of that, we are going to slowly turn the clean plate mask off. Okay, so how do we do that? We're going to hit T for opacity, and we are going to bring this all the way down. Okay, oh, there you go. That way, it is a seamless transition between the clean plate and the real footage. So if we turn the card back on, this is what's going to look like. Nice. Now, I feel like the card is looking a little too orange. So what we're going to do is go to curves or add the curves effect, and we are going to modify the colors of this. I'm going to RGB, and I think we have to reduce the red maybe just to see what that looks like. And then maybe the brightness overall could be turned down too. Yeah, I feel like that looks better. So just to give you like a before and after, that's what it is now, and this is what it was before. Now, before, I think it's a little too green, so I'm gonna bring the red, a bit of the reds back in. So off, on, on. And just making those small adjustments definitely can make or break the video. So okay, so we're pretty much done with effect number 1. The card is thrown in the air and it just disappears. Okay, cool. So we're going pretty good and good on time. And again, if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate on asking. I would love to answer if you're like having a hard time following along. I'll answer any questions you have, as long as they're relevant and as long as I know the answer. Okay, so part number 2 is going to be grabbing the card from behind the sign. And as you can see, something that we're going to do during that process is getting rid of this hand that is holding out the card, because if you see the hand bringing the card out, you're not going to be able, it's going to ruin the effect. So that's going to be part of what we have to do. So just like before, we are going to Control-Shift-D to cut, go to the end where it finishes, and do the same thing so that we can pre-compose this section. I'm going to name it Card Part 2. Okay. So, did you record the original video with just your phone or camera? That's a good question. For this video specifically, I did end up using a camera. I have a EOS R and I used a pretty wide angle lens, but this effect, and honestly, any effect that you've seen me do can easily be recorded on your phone. I think that this effect might have worked better on the phone, honestly, because if you remember in the first effect, one of the problems that we ran into was the depth of field, like the background being too blurry, and that's affecting the clean plate. And so if you film on your phone, you don't get as much blurriness in the background, so you have better chances of having like cleaner clean plate. It's a clean plate. But I just decided to film with the camera because it's usually higher quality, and that's just what I've been used to. So yeah, I recorded with my camera for this one. But again, you could just record it on your phone if you wanted to. So, just like we did with the previous step, and probably this is going to be a step that you guys are going to be doing with almost every VFX scene you're going to work on, is finding a clean plate. Okay, so if we have to get rid of this hand and the card, what we have to do is find an area or part of the video where the hand isn't there anymore, essentially the clean section, duplicate, and time freeze frame. This way, we can mask out this entire section. Let's see. And get rid of that hand. So now if I were to scroll back, you're going to notice that my hand's going behind the sign, which is what we want. So let's just see. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and feather this. Now I'm going to turn this off just to see what exactly we're going to be doing. Okay. And you see that the hand goes down here, so we're just going to adjust the mask and make sure that it goes down completely so that, oh, missed the part down here too. Yeah, that works. Cool. So I'm going to bump this up again and just see what this looks like. Okay. Sweet. Now, since we only want it to be behind the sign and not be disturbed by like this, the block wall essentially. I'm going to adjust the mask for this section. So I'm going to hit pre-compose, and this is going to be the clean plate. And so I'm just going to go in and just add more detail to this mask by masking out the actual, I don't know, the wood sign. I don't really know what I would call this. And something that I've learned throughout the years, putting in these small details into your effects, or going the extra bit just to be able to make sure all the details are accounted for, is definitely what's going to set you apart from a beginner editor versus a more experienced one. Because even in my when I was first starting out, I would have looked at this shot and would have been like, okay, just leave it. But I now know that just adding that extra bit of masking is definitely going to help the effects a lot better. So let's just straighten this out because this looks kind of weird. There you go. Okay. So let's see now. Now the problem right now is that you see a bit of the card kind of like, like inching out. So in this case, I think something that we have to do is mask out this section to make sure that the card remains hidden for its entirety. I'm going to mask it I'm going to feather out the mask so that it's less obvious. Okay. So cool. Let's see. So the hands. So another thing, we want to make sure that the clean plate appears after a certain moment. So I'm going to turn the opacity down, and I'm going to have it come up as soon as my hand goes down. So let's turn this down, go forward a few frames, and turn this on. Actually, I lied. That doesn't work. So I'm going to keep it on the whole time, but I'm going to pre-compose this so that we can mask out the section where the card starts coming out. Okay? And we're just going to animate the mask as the card gets closer. Let's see. That way, I'm just going to extend this all the way down to the entirety of where the clean plate should be. There you go. That works. And I'm going to feather this. Let's just see what that looks like. So we have the hand being on top of the mask, and then when the hand goes down, it's then behind the mask. Cool. That is the kind of the effect that we want to go for. Now, we can, sorry, my last client said it looked like I used AI doing that trick. How can I change that? I did use AI for this. Dude, honestly, you can't, there's no really good way around it. Whenever I use AI in video effects, I then have to layer a bunch of different layers on top of it. And in most cases, it honestly doesn't look like I used AI. But a lot of compositing has to go into it to make it look right. But yeah, I don't think using AI is cheating. I think that if you use it correctly, then you can use it to your advantage as long as you are still in control of the project creatively. But like I said, we could leave the effect right here. I think this is pretty much what we're going to have time to do. Because otherwise, when I was first thinking of the effect, I was thinking that maybe when I pulled out the card, the background could be stuck to the back of the card. But I think it's pretty cool just the way it is right now. It's not bad. So there we go. We are done with part 2. So let's just see what we have right now. Throw the card, goes away. And then when I reach in to grab behind the sign, bam, nice. So now we have to work on making the card, well, not a 2 of spades, but an ace of spades, okay? And this is probably gonna be the more complicated part because there's gonna be some tracking involved, but let's just see how it goes. So let's go to the point before I show the side of the card. And again, just like the previous steps, Control Shift D, go to the part where the effect ends, and Control Shift D so we can pre-compose that section. I'm gonna name this card part 3. We're gonna go in here and we're gonna start. All right, looks like people are sending me messages. Okay, cool. All right, so step 1 is going to be tracking the face of the card and getting rid of the 2 and that diamond. Oh wait, no, I'm lying. The effect has to, well, I did this backwards. Sorry, hold on. Instead of the effect isn't here, it's after I swipe up. So I'm gonna go to this point and then to the end when I lower it. Maybe we can end the video there. So pre-compose and card part 3. This way. So now, okay, yeah, now I was like confused for a second. So when my hand goes past the card like that, we have to change the 2 of diamonds to a ace of diamonds because that was the original card that we started out with, right? So to do that, we have to track the face of the card and replace it. Now, you could track this inside of, which is what I'm going to do. Yeah, we're going to be using the 2D tracker inside of After Effects. When I was first thinking about the effects, I was thinking that we were going to have to use Mocha Pro or Mocha AE, which is part of After Effects. But I think this is going to be a faster and even simpler route. But I can show you both ways just so that you can have a concept of what it is that I'm talking about. So first we're going to be using the 2D tracker inside of After Effects, and then I'm going to show you how to use the tracker, the Mocha AE tracker, so that you guys can use that too, which is also a very powerful tool. So to use the 2D tracker, I'm going to go down here, I'm going to track motion, and you're going to see that there's only 1 track point, but we're going to need 2 because we need to track the rotation of the card itself. Now, to do that, we have to go down here and click on rotation. So now we have 2 little points. So I'm going to move 1 point to this blurry red spot, which is the small diamond under the 2. And I'm going to move this other box to the big diamond. And I'm going to make sure it's just scaled properly. Now, once you have the 2 points selected, go down here and you're going to hit the Analyze Forward button so that After Effects can kind of track by itself. Now, as you saw, that was a complete failure and it didn't work at all. It immediately went off track and it lost what it was supposed to be tracking. So we're going to try that again. I'm going to make this a bit bigger so that it has more space to track. I'm going to go forward a few frames, and I think this is what messed it up, was my hand going in front of it. So I'm going to make sure I delete all these frames. And so I'm just going to go a few frames forward to where the diamonds come back and just adjust it. Okay, so now it should work, but I'm just going to go frame by frame, make sure it's okay. It's working so far. I'm going to hit the Analyze Forward button now to track faster. So as you can see, it's already going off track again. So let's go back to where it starts going off and just kind of adjust it as we go along. Okay, track forward, track forward, track forward, track forward, and it's starting to go off track again. This is definitely the most tedious part and one of the most annoying parts, other than having to rotoscope. If you put me to rotoscope, it's game on, because it's not my favorite thing to do. It just takes so much time and it's a lot of details you have to go through. But yeah, but this part, if you want to make sure it's good, you want to make sure that the track is good. Because if the track isn't good, then the video is just not going to work out, or the effect isn't going to work out. So let's just keep going, keep trucking through. Let's see. We're getting there. We're really close. Really. It's already going off track, but that's okay. I'm just gonna finish it off. Okay, no, it didn't work. But I'm just gonna leave it there. Oh, you know what? Something that I haven't done this entire time, which is a very bad habit if you don't do, I haven't saved the project once. Okay, so let's do that right now before the entire program just shuts down and we lose all of our work. It's not letting me save it. Oh, hold on. Look, I'm gonna be really sad if we end up losing all of this work. Okay, there we go. So Control S saved it. I think I ended up having to save it titled unsaved project. Yeah, untitled project. Because it wasn't working, but oh yeah. But yeah, again, if you're not in the habit of doing that, then get into the habit. I think that in most cases, I normally go 5-6 minutes before I just automatically hit control save, because there have been many times where it'll just crash and you lose all of the work that you've been working on, and it's never fun in any scenario. Okay, so let's say that the track went perfect and everything was good, everything was working out just the way you wanted. Once you do that, you want to make sure that you have a null out, and to get that, I went up here, layer, new, and then null object, and that's what made this come out. And go down here, make sure that the target is selected as the null, and I'm going to hit apply. Okay. Now when we do that, that means the null is going to have all the information that we just created by tracking, and it looks like it did a really good job. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys how to track it inside Mocha AE. We're going to see if it works and if it lets me do it. So to do that, we click the layer that we want to track, effect, and we want to scroll down to where it says, where is it? Boris Effects Mocha. Now I have Mocha Pro, which is like the advanced version of Mocha AE, but Mocha AE comes with After Effects. Oh, and I clicked the wrong one. So we're gonna go for Mocha AE because that's the one that you guys should have. So Mocha AE, and we're gonna track right inside of here so that you guys can see what's happening. And in my opinion, Mocha tracks like 10 times better than the AE tracker does. Hold on, I want to make sure you can see what I'm seeing. Do you see what I see? No, you don't. One second. I want to make sure that you can see what I'm saying. So I'm gonna change the. Here we go. Okay, there you go. So now we're inside of Mocha AE, which is opened by clicking the effect inside of After Effects. I know it's kind of confusing. So just like we did before, we want to make sure that we are tracking the card. But the trackers kind of work a little bit differently inside of Mocha. So what we're first going to do is we are going to select the card, which is what we want to track. So to do that, we have to go up here and hit the X spline tool, which is up here again. Once you have that, we're just going to kind of click around the card, And you want to be as precise as possible so that the program knows what it is that you want to track. Sometimes I like to get my fingers in there just so that it knows like the rotation and everything. That's really good. And then down here, you want to make sure that you choose like the options. So you got translation, scale, rotation, and shear. Perspective is if the card were to be changing like this, like, you know, if the perspective of the card was changing. But I'm pretty sure that it's just kind of rotating, so we don't have to mess with the perspective. So just like how we have it here, when we go down here, when I hit track, I want to first track backwards a few frames just to make sure that the track is kind of working. And yeah, that looks good. So I'm just going to let it do its thing. Now again, we want to make sure that we are careful with the hand coming through. So I'm just going to see what it does, and there's an error because the next frame is when the hand covers it. But it's all good. What we're going to do is just going to go back a few frames to make sure where the hand goes away, and we're just going to readjust this to go right on the card. Just like that. And hopefully it stays where it should, but it's not. So we're just going to adjust it. We're going to adjust every frame and make sure that it stays on the card. Like so. Okay. Sweet. Now let's go forward. Now as you can see, this is already 100 times easier than just tracking it with the After Effects 2D tracker. I just feel like this program was designed to track, so it's just more advanced in a lot of ways. The 2D tracker inside of After Effects is good and it is handy in most cases, but if you just go the extra step, the extra mile of using Mocha, then your results are just going to be like significantly better. So let's go to here, and then the rest of the videos might go down. We could go down, but I think it's okay if we just end the video there. So I'm going to hit save, and I'm actually going to close out of this and go back to After Effects. Okay, so that means I got to go through the steps again. Close sharing and start sharing in After Effects. Hold on one second. Here we go. Nice. Yep. Okay, so I've X'd out of Mocha and I've opened After Effects again. Now, what do we do now? Well, just like before, we have to have a null. But because this null has the information of the previous track, I'm just going to turn this off and I'm going to create another null. To do that, go up here, Layer, New, Null Object. And when we do that, we have to go back to the layer that we tracked the Mocha on, go to Tracking Data, Create Tracking Data. This is pretty much activating what we just tracked. Go down here to corner pin. People like using corner pin, but I like using transform. It just seems to be more accurate. And then we want to layer export to null number 2, which is then sending all the information, all the tracking information that we just made to this null layer. Apply export. There you go. So now all the information that we just tracked is locked on to the card. Now, why did we just do all of that? Well, just to give you an example of what we're going to be doing, I'm going to create a new solid just to show you what it is that we're doing. So this is just a random block, right? And essentially what a null object is if I go down here and I parent link the white layer that we just made, if I link that to the null, anything the null does, the white layer is going to do also. So if I scroll forward, you're going to see that it's going to be moving with the tracked null that we just created. Now, what's cool is that because this is linked to the null, I can independently animate or move the white box however we want, and that's not going to affect the parent link at all. Now, if I were to grab the layer that we made and move it, it's also going to move the white layer. But I'm going to hit Control-C so that it goes back to the place. So that's basically what we're going to be doing, but with the ace that we made. Now let's go back and find the card that we made. This one right here. I'm going to Control C, which is copy the 2 layers. And then I'm going to Control V, which is to paste it into our layer here. Pre-compose, I'm gonna name this card 2. I'm gonna freeze frame it so that we can extend it the entire length of the composition. And just like we did before, we wanna make sure that the center point of the card is in the center of the card. What? I know, crazy. Now, just like we did with the white paper or the white box, we are going to parent link this card to the card in my hand, or to the null. So we grab right here, we're going to stretch this out, and now it's going to be linked to the card that we just made. Okay, so now we're just going to move the ace of diamonds, and we are going to position it to where it's supposed to be. And we're going to try to match the scale and everything. So I'm going to turn the opacity down so we can see the card underneath. And as you can see, it's starting to extend on that side. So I'm just going to scale it down a teeny tiny bit. And something else that we can do is apply the effect liquefy. And essentially, we can kind of mesh this into the shape of the card that's underneath. So if I turn this on, you're going to see that it's quite different. So I'm just going to grab the liquefy tool, and I'm going to just gently push the ace of diamonds card into the shape of the card that's underneath. Okay, so just a few, doesn't have to be anything, well, doesn't have to be anything crazy, just enough to get us by. I'll probably stretch this on top like so. Okay, so if I turn the opacity up, turn it down, it's in the same position. And let's just make sure that it remains in that position for the entirety of this video. Cool. Something else we can do is add motion blur so that there's motion blur to whenever the card moves. Just to show you what that looks like, I'm going to go to a point where I'm moving the card. So if I turn the motion blur off, look how clear it is. And if I turn it on, you're going to see like the motion blur is being applied. Okay. So let's just see what that looks like. Nice. Now, if I were to turn this off and on again, you're going to notice that there's something very obvious happening, and that is that my fingers are being covered by the fake card. Now, to make that not happen, we have to roto out the fingers. And there are different ways that we can do that. And we're going to try different ways just to see if which way works the best. The first way, and is usually the quickest, is rotoscoping it out with the roto brush tool inside of After Effects, which I personally really like. I've heard mixed reviews. Not everybody is too fond of it, but I personally really like it. So what you do, you go up here, click the roto brush tool, and you want to double click on the layer you want to roto. This little green pen is going to appear, and what you're going to do next is you're going to draw out the section that you want to roto. So in this case, my fingers. Now, sometimes it does a really good job, sometimes it doesn't. In my personal opinion too, right now version 3 of RotoBrush is out. In my opinion, I think version 2 works better, especially when the quality is placed on best. So once you do that, I'm just going to go in and make some micro adjustments and make sure that the mask is getting only the fingers. So like right here, there's this big gap that we can get rid of. So I'm just going to get rid of this. So like I said earlier, other than tracking, rotoscoping is one of my enemies. It's not the most fun thing to do, but it's not the worst. Especially nowadays, because we have tools that will help us out with this. So once you have your shape, what I've been doing lately is just going down here and clicking this button freeze. And essentially this is putting the program to work and just automatically going ahead and masking out whatever you need it to do. And like I said before, RotoBrush version 2, in my experience, works better than RotoBrush 3. Now, depending on the speed of your computer, this is that's going to determine whether this works pretty fast or pretty slow. I currently have the M1 MacBook Pro, and it's probably one of the best computers I've ever owned. And it makes rotoscoping a lot easier than what I was when I used to edit on. Okay, so when the freezing of the rotoscoping is done, it's going to turn purple down here. And if you want to make any adjustments to the rotoscope, you have to unfreeze it, but that's going to make it have to process all over again. So to not do that, we're not going to touch any of it. We're just going to go back to the composition. And now, in theory, the fingers should be on top of the fake card. Now, as you can notice, it's kind of like iffy, right? So again, there are a few things that we can do. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this, and I'm going to make this layer white. So I'm going to add the hue and saturation, and I make this white so that I can then add a box blur and just up it a teeny tiny bit. By doing this, I'm going to go down to the layer that we rotoscoped, delete the rotoscope effect, and now I'm going to track matte that to the white layer that we just made. And I'm gonna solo this, and then see, like now it's completely rotoed out, and it has more feathered edge that we want. So let's just see what that looks like. So it's honestly kind of meh. You see some jumps, which is not what we want. Let's go frame by frame. It's okay, but again, that's not what we want at all. So I'm going to scrap that idea, and I'm going to delete this, and we're going to start rotoscoping from 0 essentially, but by trying something else. So just like we did before, we're going to make a white layer. And the reason for that is because we're going to track this layer to the null. And it's going to move with the hand that with the mask that we made for the card, right? Because of that, we can then, in theory, mask out the fingers, and the mask is going to stay the same because it's on the white layer. So just to show you what I'm talking about, I'm going to go up, mask out the fingers. Make sure I get all of them. That should be good. There we go. I'm going to hit M just to make any adjustments that we need to. But if I scrub forward, the null is going to do most of the work. And it's going to make the mask just cover the fingers and do the work for us. So we're just going to keep scrolling, and what I like to do is just make the micro adjustments as I go along and as needed. We don't want to make like crazy adjustments to where it ruins the mask. Let's just see. Nice. Oh, let's go to this first frame, make sure. Okay, so I'm going to turn this back up. I'm going to feather it just a teeny tiny bit. And then again, just like we did the first time, we are going to track matte this to the fingers so that they appear to be on top, just like that. Where is our card? What happened to our card? It appears to be that we lost our card. I might have accidentally deleted it somehow. That's weird. Yeah, that's weird. But, okay. Let's just quickly go through the steps again and make the card come back. Okay, so freeze frame it. Oh, I gotta rename it to card 2. Again, make sure that the access point is in the middle of the card. We are going to track or parent link the card to the null that we made. Make sure that is in position. And then something we didn't do last time was turning this in 3D, and that could also help adjust the perspective of the card itself. So it's like that. We want to scale it up just a teeny tiny bit. And we're gonna make sure it's under the fingers. Yay! Okay, again, make the little adjustments as needed. And I'm going to apply the liquefy effects just to give it a tiny little bend. That way it seems like a more realistic, like, bending of the card. Let's see. Okay, cool. And then if we compare this fake card to the card that's underneath, which is the real card, we're going to see that the 2 is slightly out of focus. So what we're going to do is go and add a box blur. You can add a camera lens blur, but the camera lens blur normally is like a larger effect, so it takes up more space. So I'm just going to blur this, I don't know, maybe 3. I think that's too much. 2. And let's just see what that looks like. I'm going to add a motion blur to the fingers and then see what that looks like. Okay. As I step back, the blur should go down. So let's see, let's start this on a 1.5 and then just make it go down to 0. And make sure that you don't see the card that is underneath. Oh guys, we have a few minutes left, so I want to try to finish this up as fast as possible. Let's see. Okay, that's not too bad. As you notice, at the first few frames, the ace of diamonds is not where it's supposed to be, and it's appearing on the top of the hand. To fix that, we're going to come back out here, and we're just going to quickly duplicate this layer because this is what happens before the card. I'm going to move this on top, like so, and if you go down here, we're going to extend this top frame, which is the original video. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask out, I'm going to add a mask on my hand so that it covers the ace of diamonds from appearing before it needs to be. So just to give you a bit of context, the effect 3, which is where the ace of diamonds comes in, is underneath. So if I turn this off, that's what we're looking at. Okay. So I'm gonna hit M to mask, and I'm just going to animate the mask as my hand goes up. Like so. Should technically start down here. And then it'll just appear just like that. Wow. And now that it's off, I can get rid of this layer. Let's just see what that looks like. Now something we could do is also add motion blur to this, and it'll add a bit of motion blur to the feathering of the mask to make it a bit more realistic. And guys, there you have it. I hope that you are as shocked as I am that we were able to finish an entire edit within an hour. But just to give you a quick recap and show you the final result of the video. Let's end it right here. Now, to pre-compose everything, which is what I like to do at the very end, is selecting everything, right click, and pre-compose. Main final VFX is what I'll call it. And then the reason why I like pre-composing all of it is because once you pre-compose, you can then change the scaling and the rotation of everything if you want to add some like camera movement or some zooms. I'm going to very quickly show you how you can do that. So open up the position, and I'm going to, is it alt click? Yeah, alt click, and you're going to open up this expression window. I'm going to type in wiggle, and I'm going to put 20 and then comma 2. What this is going to do is going to add a little shake to it. I guess it wasn't that much. Or is it backwards? Error. I probably spelled it wrong, honestly. Hold on. There you go. As you can see, that's really intense. So I'm going to swap the numbers. There you go. You see, it's kind of moving a bit better. I'm going to reduce the amount of movement so that's not as intense. So let's put 14. Whoa. Yeah, 14. And then I'm going to do the same thing, but to the rotation. So wiggle, and this has to be a lot less than the previous one. So 0.3 and, I don't know, 2. Cool. So as you can see, we got these like edges. So the fixed side, just gonna scale in the footage a little bit. And that's it. So join me as we watch for the first time, can't speak, the final edit of what we just made. I'm gonna make sure that it loads first. Here we go. All right, so let's just see what we accomplished. So we grab the card, we toss it in the air, disappears, and then reach behind it, grab it, nice, and then final, and then becomes the ace of diamonds when I swipe up. Guys, and there you have it. We just went over 3 different main effects in just an hour. Now, if you guys were to put this into practice, that would be awesome. And you guys, yeah, you could be unstoppable, pretty much. I'm going to leave it up to questions for, I don't know, the next 4 minutes. So if you guys have any comments or questions, I would love to hear what you're thinking. While you do that, I do want to give you some homework just to try to put this into practice. You don't have to do this exact effect or the exact same way that I did it, but you can if you want to. Just following those same steps of using clean plates to mask over anything that you want to hide. But yeah, so your homework for this week is to put into practice what we just went over and make some sort of magical edits with what we learned. You can use a card, or but the point of it is that you can use masking in a magical kind of way. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys learned a lot, and I really hope that you are able to put into practice what you did learn. Please don't hesitate to reach out. As you see, I'm part of the Discord community as well, so if you want to send me a message, I'll try my best to respond and answer back. Again, I hope that you learned something, put into practice. If you do end up posting a video, please tag me. I would love to see your work, and then even critique it to see if you needed to do any adjustments. Yeah, all right, if there's no more questions, I will see you guys in a week, and hopefully there will be another magical edits that we can go over. Thank you again for taking time out of your day to join me during the live, and I hope that we can continue doing this. Yeah, all right, I'll see you guys next time.